point to talk about your journals. Right?
Yes.
You were shown Exhibit 455. Before we go to that, then, while the system is rebooting, let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 242.001, if I may approach, Honor. In this regard, you can take a look at that. Are all the pages in that journal complete?
No.
Are all the pages that were originally contained in that journal still in there now?
No.
If you could be so kind, could you hold up for the jury and show us where pages are actually ripped?
Yes. Do you want dates or anything, or just?
No, if you could just physically show
Okay.
torn
There's
pages.
half a page here and a following page that was ripped out.
Could you perhaps stand up and show?
Okay. There is half a page here, another page here that was ripped out. There's a piece here. There are other parts also.
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
Yeah, there's a few other places in here where pages were ripped out. I just would have to find them. I think I know by date on one. It was around the end of October.
Okay. If I may approach again, Judge. Does it appear there's pages missing out at the entry on September 9th, 2007?
Yes.
Okay. These pages that were either partially removed or completely removed, how did that come to pass?
Section like a foundation, she indicated there was more than one area.
Okay, the page that was torn in half, how did that come to occur?
Section like a foundation, the timing of that.
Overall, do you answer?
That one, even though chronologically it was before some others, that one was torn out after I removed some pages that I had written in about John Dixon because it caused me so much grief.
Distinct.
Okay. The page that were torn, the page you showed us, page or two that were torn in part, do you recall why you removed those sections? Or did you, let's start there. Did you remove those sections?
Objection, that's the words that she said she did.
Overall.
I removed the half page was August 26th, 2007, and I removed that page and the one following it.
And why did you remove that partial page and the one following it?
It's pretty vague now, but I was just going on and on about suicide. It was pretty negative. There are a lot of entries about that, but this one was just a lot more, I don't know, it was very negative about myself, and I didn't want it to be in my journal anymore.
And the pages near the entries dated September 9th, 2007, we were looking at how a few of those were removed. Do you recall why those were? Well, let me ask you this. Do you recall who removed those?
I removed those ones.
Okay. And why did you remove those pages?
I removed those ones because they detailed the weekend that I spent with John Dixon. And when Travis read it and exploded, I thought
The answer.
Complete your answer.
it just caused me so much grief that I didn't want that to even be in there anymore, because I just didn't want it in there anymore in case he was reading it again in the future.
Okay, now, we saw this journal here. This is the journal that the pages were ripped out of, correct?
Yes.
We saw this journal here, we saw some other journals, and a question was asked of you about the privacy of your journals, right? And so it begins the question, if they were private, why would it matter if you wrote about John Dixon in them, in any of the journals?
They were not private. Not as private as I wanted them to be.
Not as private as you wanted. Who, besides yourself, had access to your journals?
Well, Travis would read them, and also Mormons are encouraged to write journals with the idea in mind that they will pass those journals on to their posterity. So sometimes I would write that with that in mind. Sometimes I was a little more free-flowing, but definitely Travis had read it on several occasions.
You mentioned posterity, meaning it could be passed down to future generations. Is that what you're telling us?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And would you then, for posterity purposes or any other purpose, not want to have anything negative in your journal?
Objection meeting.
Overall, do you mean answer?
That would be one of the reasons.
What would the other reason be?
Well, there's a few reasons. There's that one. There's also the fact that Travis could potentially read something that I wrote in there. And the biggest reason was the law of attraction. It was a huge philosophy of mine at that time in my life. And one of the aspects of that law states that you're not to read about.
I want to check on Rev's congregation. She said at that time there was 3 or 4 journals. There were different time periods. So which time period is she referring to?
The stand.
Okay. The law of attraction. When were you introduced to it?
Initially, I became acquainted with it in 1999, or maybe it was 2000, actually.
Okay. And was this a principle or a philosophy that you followed from that point on?
Not religiously. It was something I was familiar with. Maybe it was in the back of my mind here and there. It certainly had an effect on me wanting to be positive, but it wasn't a big part of my life at that time.
You say it wasn't a big part of your life. At what time?
2000.
Okay. Was it a big part of your life between 2006? Well, was it a big part of your life when you were in a relationship, friendship, interacting, what have you, with Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Now, in that regard, you've mentioned a couple times that the law of attraction would be a reason why you wouldn't put anything negative in your journals. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Could you explain that? How writing something negative in your journal would contradict with the law of attraction?
Yes, I'll do my best to explain it. The idea behind the law of attraction is that we live in a vibrational universe, and that everything down to the atomic level is vibrating to a certain frequency, which creates what you see out everywhere, including sound and sight and light and all of that, and physical matter. And so the idea is that when you have a certain thought, it begets an emotion, and the emotion changes the vibration on a molecular level within your body, and that in turn affects your environment around you in a subtle way, in that it can draw negative things or positive things depending on what your predominant thoughts are. In that regard, you're encouraged to not focus on negative things or read about or write about or talk about things of a negative nature that you don't want to come into your life. So although I wrote about some negative things in my journal, I wasn't very explicit. One of the things they say that can speed up the law of attraction is if you write about something in great detail, you get into the detail, into the feeling of it, into the emotion of it, and it speeds up the manifestation process, so to speak. So I didn't get in real in depth with certain things.
So then, as it relates to negative things in your journal, you believe that had you documented instances that Travis had been violent with you, that would beget more violence? Is that what you're telling us?
Sustained.
How would writing about Travis being violent with you in your journal violate this law of attraction that you were following?
One of the things that the law of attraction encourages is when you're in a relationship with somebody to focus only on their good qualities, and more of those good qualities will come forth in the relationship as opposed to the negative qualities. When you're harping on somebody's faults all the time, those seem bigger than the qualities that you're looking for. So that was just one of the reasons. The other was I didn't want Travis to read about that. And the third, of course, is I didn't want...
She was asked about this law of attraction.
Next question, sustained.
Why then would you not write, and maybe it's the same reason, anything about seeing Mr. Alexander masturbate to the image of a child? Why would you not write that in your journal?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is I couldn't imagine writing something like that, like, okay, today I walked in on Travis beating off to pictures of kids. I couldn't write something like that in my journal because that's horrific to me, and I did have personal concern that if something like that were written in my journal, that could come back to haunt me. It's definitely not something that I wanted to record for history's sake. And again, being involved in the church at that time, we're encouraged to record things. Mormons are very big on record keeping. And I would have much preferred to have just erased that day from the record. And I never would have put something like that would also jeopardize Travis's life or his, I don't know, something illegal about him. I wouldn't want to put that in my journal, something that could compromise his status.
And would those same reasons you just stated be the reason why you didn't talk about any of the violent incidents in your journals?
Yes, again, he would read them.
She tries to tell us.
No, I asked
Yes or no.
I asked her the reasons, not a yes or no question. I asked her the reasons why she didn't put these in.
Question.
These violent, we talked about many, half dozen or so violent incidents with Mr. Alexander throughout the course of your testimony. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. On cross-examination, it was pointed out that there was no record of this anywhere in your journals. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. My question to you, and we talked about this as it relates to a few incidents, but as it relates to all these incidents, why wouldn't you put something of that nature in your journals? What are the reasons?
Well, one, I didn't want to solidify it. I mean, this sounds like denial, but I didn't want to solidify it more in reality by putting it on paper and making it more concrete. And another reason is that, and that goes to law of attraction, another reason is that if Travis were to read it, in the past he made me tear out some negative things I'd written about him. So I didn't want to put more things on paper that were negative about him. I just wanted to focus on his good qualities, not his shortcomings.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about some specific entries you were questioned about, referring you to Exhibit 455. You were shown this entry. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Not quoting the whole thing, but you say you love Travis Alexander so completely, correct?
Yes.
And you felt that at the time?
Yes.
Okay. As it relates to your journal that day, was that your entire entry?
No.
I'm going to show you what's just been marked as exhibit number 510, if I may approach Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Arias, if you could just take a look at this and advise us if this constitutes your entire entry of 82607.
Yes.
Move to admit exhibit 510.
Objection, these are 3 entries instead of the one that was presented to her by the state dated Sunday, August 26, 2007, so I would object. Plus, it also has writings apparently put there by defense counsel.
Counsel, please approach.
Turning your attention back to Exhibit 510. There are separate, it appears you write down the date on a couple of different occasions in this exhibit. Could you take a look at that for us when you put the date in three different areas?
Yes.
And in terms of that date, all those are dated August 27th of 2007, is that correct?
26th.
26, excuse me. Was that then a continuation of the thoughts and ideas you were having on that day?
Objection made.
Overruled in the answer.
Yes, it was all the same day.
I move to admit Exhibit 510, Judge.
Judge, may I, board item witness, objection on the grounds of foundation?
You may.
Ma'am, with regard to that particular exhibit, there are 3 separate entries, aren't there?
Yes.
And they're both on August 26th of '07, right?
All 3 of them, yes.
And in fact, on the first page, there's some highlight, right?
Yes.
You didn't highlight it, did you?
No.
You didn't put that on there, right?
No.
And in fact, on the second page, there's some words, right?
Yes.
You didn't write those words on there, did you?
No.
And then on the other entry, which is involving August 26th of '07, it also has some more highlights on it, right?
Yes.
You didn't put those on there, right?
No.
And in fact, there's some words on there. You didn't put those on there either, did you?
No.
And the same thing with regard to the last page of this particular exhibit. It has some writing on there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Highlights there, doesn't it?
Yes.
You didn't put that on there, did you?
No.
Additionally, it includes August 28th of '07, Tuesday, doesn't it?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with August 26th of '07, right?
No.
And in fact, with regard to Sunday, August 26th of '07, you do write what we previously talked about involving your undying love for Mr. Alexander, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, it's beyond the scope of the board or the witness, but I would object to anyway.
Overruled. You may continue.
And then in another part of this particular entry, you talk about a wholly different person, don't you?
Person?
Yes.
I believe I did mention it.
Yes, you do, don't you? It's not about Travis Alexander, the rest of it, is it?
The rest of it?
Yeah, the rest of this entry has nothing to do with Travis Alexander, does it?
It doesn't have to be, Your Honor.
The
It's not related to foundation.
Continue.
Does it?
the highlight portion does.
I'm not asking about the highlighted portion. I'm asking about the one on the right that's not highlighted. That has nothing to do with Mr. Alexander, does it?
No, that's law of attraction stuff.
Right. It doesn't have to do with Mr. Alexander and what happened with regard to August 26th of '07, does it?
Indirectly it does because it's law of attraction,
It
but
doesn't
it doesn't
talk
mention
about-
him.
Doesn't it talk about your mental outlook and what you need to do at self-improvement, ma'am?
Yes.
And then the same thing with regard to the second page of the first August 26th of '07 entry, right? Isn't that what it talks about?
Objection, Your Honor, asked to approach.
You may. Continue.
Mr. Arias, could you do me a favor and read through the entirety of the exhibit 510? And just let us know when you've completed reading that.
Okay.
Based on your review of that document dated August 26, 2007, without telling us exactly what was written in there, what issues are you dealing with in your life on August 27, 2007?
26th, right?
Huh?
26th.
26, I'm sorry.
I am writing about Travis. The range of emotions that I feel when I'm with him.
Okay. And was that subject matter, the range of emotions that you feel with him, was that something that was on your mind all throughout that day?
Predominantly, yes.
Okay. And the journal entries that you made throughout that day predominantly deal with those issues. Is that accurate?
Objection, reading.
Do me answer.
Yes, I would say so. It starts with him and ends with him.
Okay. I want to draw your attention now to the highlighted portions of those journal entries. Can you look at those and tell us what the significance of the highlighted portion?
In this first highlighted portion, I'm writing about the range from positive to negative that I feel when I'm with him.
And the next highlighted portion?
writing about suicide.
Is that directly related to the positive and negative things you're feeling related to Mr. Alexander?
I would say it was a trigger, but not the cause.
And the next highlighted portion?
I write about being at Rachel's house and about not wanting Travis to know because he would be upset, and about not tolerating any longer him saying negative things about her or any of my friends, and vice versa, about not tolerating anything when anyone saying anything negative about Travis either.
And was that the last highlighted portion there on the document?
Yes.
And all those dealt with Mr. Alexander and the issues you were dealing with in your own mind on that day. Is that accurate?
Yes, either directly or indirectly.
Judge, and once again, I'm going to move to admit Exhibit 510.
Objection, lack of foundation relevance. Additionally, there's some writings that are not attributed to the defendant that somebody put in there, but we don't know who.
More foundation regarding the words that are written in orange.
Let me draw your attention again, Ms. Arias, to exhibits 510 as well as 242001. You see the words written on the exhibit 510 in orange?
Yes.
Looking at exhibit 242001, what do those words, and you can flip to the other pages of either exhibit, what do those words signify?
They signify the fact that this page has been torn out, part of it.
And those pages are actually torn out in your journal, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to move to admit exhibit 510.
And lack of foundation as to who tore it out.
Thing.
You just had testimony about that, Judge.
Tied up to that particular entry.
As it relates to August 26, 2007, these pages that were torn out. And you previously testified that you tore out those pages?
Yes, I did.
Those half pages, excuse me. Now I would move to admit exhibit 510.
Subject to the same foundation, I don't have anything else to add to it.
All right. Move to admit exhibit 510.
Okay, Jodi. Now, by comparison, this is exhibit 455. And we talked about that not being your entire entry at that occasion or on that day, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The rest of your entry that day is approximately, using the journal pages as a guide, almost 6 pages. Is that correct?
Objection, reading it mischaracterizes that entry. Those are 3 entries.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. What I'd like you to do, we can see the part here before that's contained in Exhibit 455. We can see that written above the highlighted portion. Maybe if you could begin reading 455 and moving into the highlighted portion that's contained in Exhibit 510. Could you just read that for us?
Yes, start from the beginning.
Yes.
Well, it's a good thing that nobody else reads this because I write right now that I love Travis Victor Alexander so completely that I don't know any other way to be. I wish I did because at times my heart is sick and saddened over all that has come to pass. I don't understand it, and at times I still have a hard time believing it. He makes me sick, and he makes me happy. He makes me sad and miserable, and he makes me feel uplifted and beautiful. All in all, I shouldn't be wording it as if he makes me feel those things.
Move it up for you. Sorry.
It all originates from within. All of my darkness is a result of my own creation. It is the fruit of my thoughts, planted continually and with too much repetition. Do you want me to keep reading?
Well, no, let's stop there. When you say all of your darkness is a result of my own creation, what are you telling us there about the relationship with Travis? What you say above?
Just reading, she said, all of my darkness is a result. Doesn't say anything about Mr. Alexander.
Okay. When you talk, previous sentence, you're talking about Mr. Alexander. You say, all in all, I shouldn't be wording it. He makes me feel those things. Right? You see that?
Right?
Okay. You say it all originates from within, meaning, well, what does that mean? It all originates from within.
To me, that just means that I'm responsible for how I feel, and Travis is not. Although I feel certain ways around him, I'm trying to take responsibility for my own feelings, not that he is making me feel that way, but that the darkness that I feel is because of myself, not because of him.
Drawing your attention to second entry on August 26, 2007. Could you read that for us?
I just wish I could die. I wish that suicide was a way out, but it is no escape. I wouldn't feel any more pain, though, if I could just stop existing and have my consciousness dissolved into nothingness and my energy recycled into something else useful, for I am of little use to the world right now through no fault but my own.
Judge Price. Time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow morning, 10:15. Let's say 10:30 tomorrow morning. 10:30. Please remember the admonition. You are excused. Have a nice evening. Record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Miss Arias, you may step down. Counsel, anything else for today? Thank you.